So we've got our API key here. We know the request response. We know what it looks like. We know the endpoint that we want to use back over here. And we've even got our search term, from the input. We know exactly what city San Antonio. We know exactly what city a user might want to search for. So that's basically everything we need to go ahead and make our network request to get our forecast data, right? Should be straightforward, right? Well, not quite. Doing AJAX requests in Redux is kind of complicated the first time you do it. Doing it the right way is complicated the first time you do it. So as I've mentioned before about many things Redux, this is going to seem a little bit over the top the first time we go through it. But once you go through it, once you practice on your own example, on your own project, you're going to say to yourself, wow, this is actually amazingly simple, really straightforward, and very handy, very well put together, very well designed. But the first time, you're going to say to yourself, this doesn't make any sense, this sucks, I quit. And I encourage you to have some patience to try to champion through this content, get through this section, learn how to make the API request. Once you get through it, once you do your own example, I think you're going to like it a lot. So with that, I hope I didn't discourage you too much here. It might be that you lock onto it the first time, in which case I'm going to say congratulations. You never know. So we've got a diagram here on the screen that we've seen before. It is the action creator cycle in a Redux application. If you recall, we've got a user does something, it calls the action creator, that returns our action. I'm going to skip right here. The action flows into the reducer. The reducers assemble a new global application state, and then that gets injected back into our application. Everything re-renders and everyone's happy. So we've got one additional step on here that I didn't have labeled before. This step over here on the bottom right about middlewares. So what is a middleware? What's it doing for us? Middlewares are functions that take an action, and depending on the action's type and the action's payload or any other number of factors, the middleware can choose to let the action pass through. It can manipulate the action. It can console log it, or it can stop it altogether. It can do all these different types of little tasks on these actions before they reach any reducer. So you can kind of think of these middlewares as gatekeepers of sorts. Someone's going to call an action creator, which is going to try to toss an action over to the reducers, right? The middlewares are sitting in here kind of as like, the gatekeeper. They're like a doorman or, bouncer or what have you. I don't know whatever term you want to think of. They stop any action, they inspect it, and they say, okay, you're fine, you could go through, or no, I'm sorry, but you're not going to go to any reducers. Or maybe it says, okay, you can go, but I'm going to change this particular value on you, or any way that we want to manipulate these actions whatsoever. So you might be thinking to yourself, why in the world would I ever want to modify an action at all? I just called the action creator. Of course I want it to go to the reducer. That's the point of calling the action creator. I want to change the state. Well, the answer is that middlewares allow us to do some really interesting things by kind of intercepting these actions, which we're going to see here very shortly. At this stage, I just want you to know that all the actions that we create flow through this middleware step, and that the middlewares can modify actions. One last thing to note here, we can have many different steps of middlewares in our application. So we can have one piece of middleware, we can have 0 middlewares, we can have 100 different middlewares if we want. They're all just functions where actions pass through them before hitting the reducer. Okay, so that is a short spiel on middleware. We're going to make use of a middle here very shortly in the form of a package that we're going to install here. So I'm going to open up my browser, and I'm going to do a search for Redux Promise. And you'll see hopefully one of your first results here is for an NPM package here hosted on npmjs.com. So I'm going to go here. So this is a very popular middleware package for Redux. We're going to install this package to help us handle AJAX requests inside of our application. So we're going to install this as an npm package from the command line. Let's do that now. At my terminal, inside of my project directory, I'm going to run npm install -- save redux promise. So this is going to go out to the npm registry, grab our package, and install it for us. And in the meantime, okay, we're good. Okay, so we're going to kind of dive in here a little bit and then talk about exactly what this thing is doing for us. So before we can actually make use of this middleware package, we still have to kind of hook it into our application. Just because we installed it as a package doesn't mean that it magically gets inserted into our Redux application. We need to first hook it up. So we're going to do that inside of index.js, inside of our root project, or excuse me, inside of our source directory. So you'll see in here, we got some stuff like react-dom.render, some other stuff in here, blah, blah, blah. Now I've already set up this package, or our boilerplate, excuse me, to handle middleware. All we got to do is add it right in here. In a future section, we'll talk a lot more about how to apply middleware and go through all that kind of steps. For right now, I want to keep it just a little bit simple and just have it as drop-in as possible. So at the top, we'll make a new line and we're going to import Redux promise, which is the package that we just installed. So we'll import that from Redux promise. And then we're going to apply that middleware by just adding it inside of this first set of parentheses right here. Again, we'll talk about in the future exactly what's going on here. For now, let's just drop it in here. So we'll say Redux promise. Okay, so that's all it takes to basically hook it into our application. We just hooked a middleware into our Redux process here. Let's go ahead and continue in the next section where we will make use of this middleware.